Hello! So you may not know this, but technically I'm a scientist. I did biochemistry at university and then I did a master's in it. And because I'm interested in science, I've bought quite a few popular science books over the years. Popular science books are really weird. They can range quite a lot in how they're written. They can be really dense and be like, hey, here's some information, and they sound more like a textbook that's trying hard to be fiction, or they can be more like a story with science thrown in. But if you're interested in science, or you want to be interested in science, or want to know more about science, popular science books tend to be really good at sort of getting you into it, getting you excited about it. So I wanted to show you a few. And they're not just for scientists. I mean, even if you don't like science that much, part of it might interest you. Even like the really boring maths stuff can be really exciting and interesting. You may not agree, but anyway, So I'm going to start it off with a way not to write a popular science book, and I'm really sorry for the author for this one, but Scientia by various authors. So this book you could use as a weapon. It's really dense, it's really heavy, but it's also information dense, and if you want to quickly look something up which you probably already know a bit of, it's a really good book. So yeah, like trigonometry has the whole SOHCAHTOA thing, which is good, but if you don't know anything about trigonometry, that's going to go... You could kind of piece it together, but it's not really going to get you interested in it. It's something that you should already know a bit of to read. To be honest, I've read about 10 pages. And normally I like information density, but it's not written in a very accessible way. This is talking about an evolutionary arms race, and it kind of goes through what it is, but with an evolutionary arms race you want it to be more fun and exciting, like in Futurama. That was a really good episode of Futurama, like for explaining what an evolutionary arms race is. That was the one, really. Like, this is probably a good book to just look through, but it's not something that I would read leisurely, or indeed as a reference. Like, Wikipedia will be more accessible. So I'm a biology kind of guy primarily, so Genome by Matt Ridley is a really good gene DNA book. I'll be honest, it's a bit harder to read than I'd like, but also really interesting in the way it's structured. Humans have 46 chromosomes arranged in 23 pairs. This has 23 chapters, and each chapter will talk about a gene or set of genes on a chromosome. So it's really well structured, and if you're into DNA and the human genome in particular, it's a really good book to read for tidbits and information, but it is a little bit dense for some light reading. This is one of my favourite popular science books. So this is Discoveries That Changed the World by Rodney Castledon. Every chapter is a different discovery that's either geographical or scientific, which has had an impact on how we look at the world. Uranus, tungsten, uranium, the Ice Age, ozone, hormones. It's a really wide variety of stuff, and it tells you how these discoveries were made, who by, and their impact on the modern world. My favourite bits for that were how elements were discovered, because they're great. If you can get your hands on it, that's a pretty good one. The Code Book by Simon Singh is a maths book. Maths, you might think, is a really hard kind of subject to just write nonchalantly about. I'm so glad I said nonchalantly properly. So this book is about cryptography, which is codes and sending messages in code. So he'll talk about how the first sort of codes were made, very simple codes you might have done in school where you change every letter to the next letter. So for example, maths would become mbwit. But then it goes on to explain how they can be harder and harder to decode, and how people can decode them. And it kind of leads up to the Enigma device, which was used in World War II to code messages sent by the Germans. I watched The Imitation Game recently, which was amazing, but there's a few factual things that are a bit wrong in the film. The book actually gives you a very good narrative as to how they broke the Enigma code, but it's told in a very accessible way, because it starts with very easy principles, changing one letter to another letter. It's actually very easy to follow when you get onto very complicated codes. And then it sort of ends with talking about how things are coded online, which I think is a really interesting thing and people should know more about it. For example, if I wanted to give you something in a box, I'd give you the box with a padlock on it and a key. And if I sent you the box and I sent you the key, someone could intercept them both, and then they'd have all the stuff that's in the box. Oh no! So, bear with me. I put a padlock on the box. I keep the key and send you the box. If someone intercepts it, they can't open it. When you get the box, you put your own padlock on it and you keep your own key. You then send me the box, which now has 2 padlocks on it. I take off mine with my key, send it back to you. You take off yours with your key, and now you have the stuff in the box, but no one can intercept it at any point because we keep our keys. But that's the general system, and it's much more complicated, but knowing that analogy allows you to understand it a lot more in depth, And I think people should know that kind of thing, because it's quite an interesting concept and quite easy to understand, I hope. Simon Singh's really good at writing maths in a really accessible way. His other book, which I've read, is Fermat's Last Theorem. More interesting maths. So to keep things short, a couple of 100 years ago, a guy wrote in a book, hey, you know that Pythagoras guy? You know that equation he did? Well, I've done a similar one, but I'm not going to tell you how. And for some reason, it really caught on, and people for hundreds of years have been trying to work out how he did it. Not to say that Fermat did it, he just said he did. While it can kind of be explained in the course of a slim volume, is really intricate. The guy who eventually worked out Fermat's Last Theorem took about 6 years. 6 years! Doing nothing else, just 6 years. Maths and sleeping, and maybe drinking wine occasionally. But then someone looked through his workings out and was like, you missed a spot. So he had to go back and redo that bit and put more work in and more years in just to fill that little gap. It's incredible. But whereas the book kind of generally explains the maths behind it, and you can kind of see where it's all coming from, what's most interesting is the story of the people involved. I haven't got the book with me at the moment, so I can't check this, but as I remember it, there was a guy a couple of 100 years ago who wanted to kill himself at dawn. And he couldn't sleep, and he said, well, I could kill myself now, or I could wait till dawn, because I said I'll wait till dawn, so I'll do it at dawn. So he picked up a book and got into this maths proof, and got into the maths so much that dawn came and dawn went, and he was still reading, and he was like, well, actually, I don't want to kill myself, because this is really interesting. Maths saved someone's life. Okay, maths probably saves a lot of people's lives, because it goes into engineering, NMR machines, and CAT scans, and things like that. So maths has saved a lot of people's lives, but that one guy in particular. In a similar way to the personalisation of Simon Singh's book, is my favourite popular science book. A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. This book is a scientific bible. This book is just really good. So this book has a lot of science in a very readable and accessible way. So in no particular order, it deals with the Big Bang, how the world formed, how things on Earth, like volcanoes and things, how they work, life on Earth, dinosaurs, how humans came about, what humans have done. Like, the scope of the book is huge, and yet it's not really detailed. But what's most important with this book, compared to any other book, is that he says how these discoveries were made and by whom. But it tells a really nice story, and it's not in order. It doesn't start with the Big Bang and move on to the Earth and everything. It moves around because he'll make these little connections. He's a really good writer. He's mostly like a travel writer, and you can kind of see how that builds in, because it's not written like any other popular science book I know. But it's full of really interesting stories. When people discovered new animals very far away, they'd bring them back to London, but they'd kind of eat them on the way because they were hungry, and they were on a boat, and they were like, well, there's more of them. It's like, well, no, because if you keep doing that, there's going to be no animals left. Stupid humans. Or, for example, there were people in a satellite base somewhere, and they kept on getting static sound through their equipment that you get with TVs and radios and things. And they were like, we can't get rid of this sound. We've been trying to get rid of it for ages. It's still there. And it turns out that sound is the aftermath of the Big Bang. It's caused by radiation from the Big Bang, but reaching us now. It's really cool. And it's just a really fun book to read. Like, you can't use it as a reference book, because it goes all over the place all the time. It's not distinctly in particular chapters that you can go, right, I need to find out this. Read. You just read it as a book, but it contains so much. I read it about 3 times. So if you're interested in science, or you want to know more about science, definitely get this book. It's a really good way of just finding out a bunch of stuff about where we live, the world, the universe, how big it is. Like, he talks about the size of the universe quite a lot. And there are scientists I know who haven't read this book. And I'm looking at you, Dan, because I tried to make you read this in university, and you were always like, yeah, I'd rather Xbox. So those are some popular science books that I have and I think are really good, and I hope if you're interested in this kind of thing that you'll read these books. Get in touch if you have read them or if you want to read them. I haven't covered this kind of book before. If you want to hear more about this kind of stuff, let me know. Subscribe, thumbs up if you liked, and as always, thanks for watching.